This is a podcast for Academy Online Learning. For more information, visit our website www.academyonlinelearning.com. Hello and welcome to our podcast series where I meet students that have studied on our Access to HE diplomas, functional skills or GCSE courses. In this episode, I talk to Joy, who has recently completed the Access to Health Science in Nutrition and Dietetics. Joy, like most of our students, has studied whilst remaining in her full-time job and has successfully managed her time within her busy lifestyle to complete the diploma in time for the June moderation. Thank you for being on the podcast, Joy. You are still a science teacher and have been studying the Access to Nutrition and Dietetics over the past 12 months. How did you fit studying around your other commitments?
It was definitely tough at times fitting the studying around my very busy job. I work as a teacher, so I had to be kind of super organised with my time. I'm a pretty organised person anyway, and it was just a matter of kind of setting that time aside for study. So I don't have children, so in terms of family commitments, this was a little bit easier for me. So it's just me and my husband, so it was kind of setting aside that time in the evening, so kind of knowing almost to the extent that, okay, so this is when I'm going to be cooking dinner and eating dinner, this is when I'm going to be studying. And it sounds quite extreme, but there were times where I did have to do that, and particularly kind of during what I would describe as crunch points at work, certain points of teaching. Anybody who's a teacher will know certain points of the year can be much, much busier. So obviously during the summer holiday, near to when I was starting the course, it was much easier to manage. But as soon as I started again at work in September, it became a little bit trickier to manage. But as I said, I'm a fairly organised person. I think that's the key. So even if you're not a particularly organised person, it's still definitely doable, and kind of putting that time aside and knowing, okay, so in the evening I'm going to be doing an hour of work, and then maybe at the weekend obviously there's a little bit more time.
Yes, managing your time as a teacher in those busy periods must have been planned well. Now, as a science teacher, looking at both sides of the learning experience, what made you choose online learning?
Again, with why I chose the kind of online learning path, I love the flexibility of the online learning. Like I said before, being able to fit it in around my job was a massive bonus. Having gone through the pandemic, teaching again full time, and we were completely online,
of course,
for half of the year in 2020, and that kind of really opened my eyes to what could be done with online learning. As I said, I love the flexibility. There's so much available now online, particularly, if I compare it to when I was first studying. So I did my first degree back in 2002, so over 20 years ago, and the resources that are available in terms of online resources are just so completely different. It's quite amazing how much more is available now, and knowing this was kind of really comforting, and as I said before, being able to fit it in around everything else was fantastic.
With the lockdown period from the pandemic that you mentioned, a lot of people consider online learning to be a teacher stood in front of a camera with some students in the classroom whilst everyone else is learning from home. AOLL has never done that. It's a personal experience with a one-to-one tutor using the online portal and learning materials and online discussions and tutorials. So from your end of course review, it's apparent that you really enjoyed studying online. As a teacher yourself, how would you compare Access to HE to A-levels?
I've been an A-level chemistry teacher for most of my teaching career for the last 15 years. So I've kind of seen what students go through in terms of the pressure that they're under throughout the course, really, and particularly in the months leading up to the final exams in year 13, I think there's a huge amount of pressure on A-level students. And I kind of look back now when I sat my A-levels a very long time ago, and I'm not really sure how I cope with that pressure actually. I think it's asking a lot, and students obviously do incredibly well to cope with that pressure. But I'm just as well really grateful that these other options exist, like the Access course. It's in terms of the academic demand, I would say very similar, but obviously the structure of the course is very different. So there's less pressure in the sense that not everything is riding on 2 or 3 days when you're doing those exams at the end of the course. And you can study and revise and be fully prepared, but things might not quite go to plan, and that obviously has a knock-on effect. And when I did my A-levels, again a long time ago, back in 2002, I didn't quite get the grades to do the course that I now want to do. And to have this course available to me, I'm just so grateful that this option exists. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with what I chose to do in terms of making this happen, because when I was first looking into doing this course at university, the responses I was getting, speaking to the universities, the responses I was getting was, your A-level grades are not what we would want. And also the fact that my first degree is not nutrition based. It may have been different if that was the case, but my first degree, as I said, wasn't based around nutrition, or it wasn't a pure biology degree. It meant that I needed to do something else, which is where the Access course came in.
Yes, you studied the Access to Nutrition and Dietetics diploma. Can you share with us how you tackled the assignments to achieve the excellent grades, and any particular highlights of a topic that stood out for you?
In terms of how I tackled the assignments, I feel that I'm at a slight advantage with my teaching, because I think that teaching as a career has taught me a great deal in terms of how to study, which is quite interesting. So I feel like that helped a lot. The assignments themselves were very kind of clear, and I liked the assessment criteria. So this was always my first, the kind of first thing I would do. So when I released the assignment, I would have a read through it and kind of let that sit really. So I then would come back to it the next day. So it just gave me a little bit of time to consider some of the questions. And then in terms of how I tackled it from then on, I did tend to be fairly methodical. I guess that's the kind of science background in me. I tended to do the questions in order, although that wasn't always the case. If there was maybe a question that I didn't particularly like, I would then come back to it. But I tended to do the question in order, and I would have a working document that I would obviously continually add to as I was doing the assignment, and obviously using the assessment criteria. I used a huge amount of resources. The Warren Grant textbook was incredibly useful, particularly for some of the biology assignments, a lot of the biology assignments actually. I found some fantastic video resources on YouTube. Got to give an honourable mention to Dr. Wendy Riggs. If anyone is studying any of the biology units, she has got some fantastic stuff. I would highly recommend her. And yeah, as I said, a lot of the resources I was finding online rather than paper resources. So once the basic assignment was written, I would tend to then obviously do a word count. I was always over, never under. And obviously you can only be 10% over the word limit or 10% under. So I would go back and do a rough edit. So I would try then to bring it within the 10% over and try and do my best with that. Some took longer than others. Some were easier to edit than others. It depends on how many words I was over. And in terms of standout units, I absolutely loved the biopsychology one. So looking at the effect of drugs on the brain, equally the nervous system was incredibly interesting. I think that even though that I have a scientific background, I have learned so many new things, and it's brought back knowledge that I did have and maybe haven't studied for years. You know, maybe when I originally did, you know, I did biology and chemistry A level, but again, a very long time ago. So it's just brought back so much knowledge, so much new knowledge, so much kind of old knowledge that was buried somewhere. And I just think, hopefully, all being well, I think this has been such good preparation for going back to university.
Fantastic. You've completed the Access course now and will be applying to university not this coming September, but next September. You have plenty of time now to prepare for your UCAS application and attending interviews. And by the way, you can still access the VLE 24/7 for UCAS application support, and we will be on hand if you have any specific queries. As you know, there is a lot of support on the Student VLE, which, for anyone that isn't aware, it's the virtual learning environment. This is our online interactive learning platform. Where do you intend to apply to, and what is the reason for your choice? Have you considered going through clearing this year?
So with my chosen course, Nutrition and Dietetics, not every university offers the course. There's not a huge amount of universities in the UK that do offer the course, and my choices are based on area in terms of things like affordability and whereabouts in the country. So in terms of closeness to family and things like that. I'm also looking at hopefully using the NHS bursary scheme, which is offered in Wales. So two of my choices will be Wrexham and Cardiff Met, which both offer nutrition and dietetics. And I'm particularly interested in Wrexham. I think that it's quite a small university. From what I can gather, it has a kind of very community, almost like family feel, which really appeals to me. I also studied in Wales for my first degree, so I love it there. I think it's a fantastic country. So I would be quite happy to be based there. And in terms of clearing, I'm not intending to go through clearing just for kind of, you know, current circumstances and things like that. So I'm very happy with my plan to apply for starting in 2024, and this gives me a little bit more time to do my UCAS form. And again, it's been a very long time since I've done a UCAS form, so it gives me plenty of time to get that sorted and be fully happy with my personal statement and the application itself.
And finally, to anyone that is listening and maybe considering embarking on a big career change via an online access course with Academy Online Learning, is there anything you would like to share with these listeners in terms of taking the plunge?
I would say to anyone that's thinking about doing a course with the Academy of Online Learning, or making kind of a big life change that hopefully I'm about to do, I would say just go for it. It's very manageable. Even if you don't have a scientific background, it doesn't matter. You know, the resources are there, the tutors are there to support you, and the assignments themselves are designed to kind of help break things down to make it as easy to understand as possible. And there are very challenging aspects to it, which is obviously a really good thing. But honestly, if you're kind of on the fence or umming and ahhing about doing it, I would say just go for it. And yeah, as I said, it was a fantastic experience for me, and I'm actually quite sad it's over.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I wish you all the best of luck with finishing your career as a teacher and soon becoming an undergraduate student. Thanks for listening, and for more information about our online courses in Access to HE or other short courses including GCSEs and functional skills, visit our website www.academyonlinelearning.com.